Week 6 kicks off in just a few hours on Thursday Night Football with the Eagles going up against the Giants in MetLife, and you guys may be struggling to set your lineup. And in today's video, I'm going to help you do exactly that, going in depth through every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way up until the doubleheader on Monday Night Football. And I'll be telling you guys whether you should start or sit the tight ends in all those games, as well as how I believe they will finish by the end of the week. Before we can get on into things, though, if you are new to the channel, make sure you do hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Football Giants. Now, Dallas Goedert at this point in the season just has a 5-star hotel inside of the end zone like his name was London Tipton. 4 total touchdowns over the last 3 games and 1+ touchdown in each and every single game. Last week up against the Denver Broncos, he had 3 receptions on 9 targets for 19 yards and a touchdown. And I understand that he is as touchdown dependent as it gets, but when you keep scoring, I will keep trusting him. The Giants matchup is a below average matchup for tight ends on a per game basis, but I will be riding the hot streak this week here and rank him as a low end tight end 1. Just like Dallas Goedert, Theo Johnson lives inside of the end zone and is incredibly touchdown dependent. 3 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks, and it appears that without Malik Neighbors, Theo Johnson is going to continue to get peppered Salt Bay style. Last week in New Orleans, 6 receptions on 7 targets for 33 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is very touchdown dependent because of the fact that while the touchdowns are coming bountiful-wise his way, he hasn't even eclipsed the 40 receiving yard mark at this point in the season. And with a brutal matchup for tight ends on a weekly basis up against the Eagles, he is a last-ditch effort fringe tight end to start. Next up, we move to England. The Denver Broncos versus the New York Jumbo Jets. Set the alarm 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, Evan Ingram has finally started to come alive in this Broncos offense. He started off the year looking invisible, and then coming out of his missed game in week 3, he has been much more involved. 6+ targets in back-to-back showings, and last week up against the Eagles in Philadelphia, he had 4 receptions on 6 targets for 33 yards and a touchdown as the tight end number 12. This is a top 10 matchup for tight ends up against the Jets, so maybe we'll be able to get lucky this week with Evan Ingram. But after just 1 solid game, I am not ready to crown him yet, right? Throw the crown on him, declare that he's a tight end 1. He is in that dart throw tight end 2 range, kind of like Theo Johnson, where it's really kind of just a last ditch effort. You need to throw something against the wall and hope it sticks. You play Evan Ingram, you play Theo Johnson. Mason Taylor has caught fire over the last 2 weeks, coming off a high ankle sprain during training camp. He started off the season at snail's pace, but over the last 2 weeks, he has really shown off that upside. 7+ targets in both games with a top 12 finish in both matchups in full PPR. Last week up against Dallas, he was the tight end 8 with 9 receptions on 12 targets for 67 yards. Behind Garrett Wilson, he is the true number 2 target on this team. And while the touchdown upside may be limited just due to the fact that the Jets offense is kind of just a steaming pile of dog shit, if he keeps seeing a boatload of targets, he will keep producing. In terms of matchup, this is a far from ideal one, but with how many targets he should be seeing, I think he'll be able to overcome that as a low-end tight end 1. Next up, we move to the 1 p.m. slate on Sunday with the Los Angeles Rams going up against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Now, most weeks, the Ravens are going to be a team where they have tight ends that you actually like, right? They have Mark Andrews. They have Isaiah Likely. And these are 2 talented tight ends. But without Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews has been banished to the bench. Once Lamar Jackson does get back, I will be open to starting Mark Andrews, as he did look solid in both weeks 3 and 4. But without him, the floor and the ceiling are just so much lower. Last week with Cooper Rush under center up against the Texans, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 22 yards. So here, even in a slightly above average matchup for tight ends up against the Rams, say no to Mark Andrews and leave him on your bench. Now, Likely has been back for the last 2 weeks as well, but he has yet to truly stake a claim in this offense with just 1 target over the last 2 games. For Davis Allen, this is a team that is going to use around 3 tight ends on a weekly basis, which was the case last week with Tyler Higbee dealing with a hip injury. He missed last week, and it would seem unlikely that he plays, which would make Davis Allen the tight end 1 on the team in terms of snaps. Ultimately, though, when I can't even guarantee 2 targets, I am unwilling to roll the dice here, even with how great the offense of the LA Rams has been. Even with a top 12 matchup on paper for the tight ends on a weekly basis, you should be leaving Davis Allen on your waivers. Next up, we move to the Dallas Cowboys at the Carolina Panthers. Now, Jake Ferguson is one of the premier tight ends in fantasy football. 4 straight games inside the top 5. In my opinion, I would be shocked if CeeDee Lamb was back, and that is great news for Ferguson, as rude as that may sound. 7 receptions on 9 targets last week in MetLife up against the Jets for 49 yards and not 1 but 2 touchdowns in that game. 3 total touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. We saw Darren Waller stuff that defense last week like they were the Thanksgiving turkey, so I expect Fergalicious to drop sack in the mouth of the Panthers here as a top 4 tight end, especially since the Panthers are the second best matchup for tight ends on a weekly basis. Now, Jatavion Colonel Sanders returned to practice on Wednesday, so he may be back this week. Either way, regardless of who the tight end 1 is here, whether it's Tommy, make that ass tremble, or Jatavion Sanders, I just don't feel confident enough in this offense as a whole to start either guy until Bryce Young really figures things out. Even in a top 12 matchup for tight ends up against the Dallas Cowboys, I have 0 interest. Next up, we got the Arizona Cardinals at the Indianapolis Colts in the best tight end matchup of the week. Both Trey McBride and Tyler Warren will be must starts, and if you have either guy, you already knew that before clicking on this video. Trey McBride had his worst game of the season last week with 5 receptions on 7 targets for 41 yards as the tight end 20, but prior to that, he has been a top 12 tight end every single week. You wouldn't quit on Christian McCaffrey if he had 1 bad game, so you're not going to quit on Trey McBride either. The health of Kyler Murray will impact my rankings, as I will not be as high on him if Jacoby Brissett is under center. Regardless, though, you're probably still going to be playing him, assuming Kyler does return. He would be a locked and loaded top 4 option. Tyler Warren has been the GOAT late round tight end pick this season, and I am very happy that I talked about him positively throughout the summer. If you were lucky enough to have won the lottery and you ended up drafting him, you will continue firing him up. Outside of a slip up against the Tennessee Titans, just like Trey McBride did last week, he has been a top 12 option every other week, including last week up against the Las Vegas Raiders, going 4 for 4 like he was at Wendy's for 44 yards and a touchdown. Speaking of Wendy's, did you guys see that they changed the lettuce at Wendy's to that McChicken type of lettuce? As a Wendy's enjoyer, this was something that really disappointed me because I didn't know that was going to be happening. I ordered my Wendy's to pick it up. I pick it up. I'm like, yip, hip, hooray. I'm so excited to eat my fucking junior bacon cheeseburger. And the lettuce on there, just wrong. It ruined my day. I don't understand what they are doing, and they need to change that. But you got to fire up Mr. Tyler Warren as a top 4 tight end option. Next up, we move to Duval with the Seattle Seahawks at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, AJ Barner is on fire right now, like Fetty Wap's run in 2015. 3 touchdowns over the last 2 games, and coming off a 2 touchdown performance up against the Bucs with 7 receptions on 7 targets for 53 yards and 2 scores as the tight end 1. Things are looking on the up and up, though. I will pump the brakes here, not due to the matchup, as this is just a slightly below average one, strictly due to his target share. Prior to last week, he had 9 targets over the first 4 games, and last week, he got 7. Sure, if he can keep this up and be a 5+ target guy weekly, I will be starting him. But if you picked him up and you have no other option, I get why you may have to play him. And if you are playing him this week, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, he's a terrible start. Oh, if you start AJ Barner, you're an idiot. I'm not going to say that. But if you have another option on your team that is listed as a start, I would prefer to start them. But again, if AJ Barner explodes, Krakatoa, Kachow has a big game here, then we're going to be talking about him very, 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 very positively next week. Now, with Brenton Strange on IR with a quad injury, Hunter Long is now the tight end 1 on the team. The Miami Dolphins legend has yet to really do much of anything in his career. Maybe with how much Strange was getting utilized in this offense, that will just transfer over to Hunter Long, but I don't think I really even believe that. I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't have a single catch in this game. He is a clear sit. Next up, we move to the LA Superchargers at the Miami Dolphins, but before we break down this game in depth at the tight end position, as well as the rest of the games on the Week 6 slate, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends, our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you receive a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as if you play $5 in the pick'em, you'll receive an additional $100 in bonus funds or in bonus entries. How the pick'em works is incredibly simple. You pick at least 2 players, the higher or the lower. If the picks hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, the payout will be higher. But again, all of the picks need to hit, so make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. Now, Darren Waller missed practice yesterday on Wednesday, listed as a hip, but it is more than likely just veteran rest, with him being shot out of a cannon over his first 2 starts of the season, with 3 total touchdowns across those 2 starts, and with both finishes being inside the top 6, you have to feel incredible about him. In week number 4, he got there by touchdowns. Last week, he scored, but had 5 receptions on 5 targets for 78 yards and a touchdown in Carolina. If the team can involve him in the second half, he might fuck around and be the tight end number 1. While this is a bad matchup on paper for tight ends up against the Chargers, at this point, you cannot deny Waller of being ranked inside the top 10 as a clear must-start tight end. For Aaron Gadsden has really cooled down since his rookie debut up against the Broncos. In week 3, after that game, everyone was getting all over me. Nick, why do you not have Gadsden listed as a start? He had a great game in his first ever start, right? He had 5 receptions on 7 targets for 46 yards. Since then, he has combined for less fantasy points over the last 2 weeks and had just 1 reception on 1 target last week. I get the Dolphins defense is diabolically bad, and hell, even Xavier fucking Legette scored against them last week, but there is no need to play Gadsden, who may not even eclipse 50% of the snaps in this spot. Next up, we got game number 8, the Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. For the first time in forever, shout out to Elsa and Anna. David Njoku finally had a great game in England up against the Minnesota Vikings. He had 6 receptions on 9 targets for 67 yards and a touchdown. Hopefully Dylan Gabriel will continue to force the ball his way. I am pessimistic though after just 1 game, but the quarterback changeover should prove to be a positive for this offense. In a top 5 matchup for tight ends up against the Steelers, I got David Njoku as a low-end tight end 1 on the week. Now, it would appear that Dylan Gabriel loves tight ends more than I do. Shout out to Mia Malkova. 4 receptions on 4 targets last week for Fannin, with 13 receiving yards and a touchdown as the tight end 15. With Cedric Tillman hurt, the team will look to utilize the tight end position even more. Fannin does appear to be lower down the totem pole, though, than David Njoku, so while he will be listed as a start, he will be ranked lower in the fringe tight end 2 range. With such a great matchup, though, the upside is there. Unlike David Njoku and Harold, Fannin in Cleveland, Janu Smith and Pat Freiermuth, all they do is just cannibalize each other. In their last game prior to the bye up against the Vikings in Ireland, Darnell Washington led the tight end group in terms of receptions. No need to even chance things with Janu or Freiermuth until something changes. Next up, we got the New England Deflatriots at the New Orleans Saints. Hunter Henry has been a roller coaster of love so far this season. We have seen very high highs and very low lows. And ultimately, in an offense that can be as potent as the Patriots, I'm just going to keep rolling the dice and keep starting him. Down game last week up against the Bills in Buffalo with 2 receptions on 4 targets for 46 yards. In a top 6 matchup for tight ends up against the Saints, I feel a bounce back is coming. We saw Theo Johnson blow their back out last week, so I got Hunter Henry as a top 8 option. Juwan Johnson has been banged up and still is with the ankle injury. He was able to play through injury last week and played 85% of the snaps against the Giants, but he performed not so hot. Back-to-back stinkers after a heater to start off the season over the first 3 games. So I wouldn't completely abandon Juwan Johnson with Taysom Hill back. But that locked and loaded top 12 treatment that I was giving him really just can't be the case anymore. So he's kind of in that YOLO tight end 2 fringe start range. Next up, we got the 4 p.m. slate beginning with the Le Titans at the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, speaking of the Raiders, it doesn't seem like Brock Bowers will play this week with his knee injury that he has been dealing with all season and that held him out last week. Michael Mayer has been out with the concussion. He was a full participant in practice yesterday, so my assumption is that he does play. Even so, I am not touching Geno Smith's tight end 1 that isn't named Brock Bowers, and even Brock Bowers has been on the struggle bus this season. I say this every week, and I will reiterate the same exact take. I'm going to regurgitate the same take this week with Chig. If Cam Ward figures things out, then Chig can be a start-worthy tight end. He has the ability to do so. But in the situation the offense is in right now, you cannot make an argument to play him. Just one game over 10 PPR points and 4 of 5 games outside the top 20 at tight end. Last week against the Cards, he had 4 receptions on 5 targets for 48 yards. So with Ward's play still kind of in the toilet, you aren't starting Chig, and he should be on your waivers. Next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, even with the Buccaneers offense being a straight up wagon, even with the Buccaneers offense having the ability to drop 40 plus points in any given game, Cade Otton has been mostly invisible. Now, last week, he had his best game of the season with 4 receptions on 5 targets for 81 yards in the shootout up against the Seahawks in Seattle, but I don't project that to really happen again. One huge game after not doing diddly squat all season does not justify me completely changing my opinion of him. So even without Mike Evans in a mid-range matchup, Otton is still a guy that should not be in your lineup. Now, Jake Tongs has been going crazy over the last 2 weeks. A top 9 tight end in both showings with a touchdown in both games. With Ricky Pearsall seemingly out, Jake Tongs will be elevated up the offense's hierarchy yet again. And if Juwan Jennings can't go, then he'll be elevated even further. Last week against the Rams on Thursday Night Football in SoFi, 7 receptions on 11 targets for 41 yards and a tug. The Bucs are a top 10 matchup for tight ends, so Tongs definitely does feel risky, but he is a fringe tight end to start. Next up, we move to the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Green Bay Packers. Can Joe Flacco beat them a second time? Very interesting. And the best matchup for tight ends on a weekly basis, Tucker Kraft Mac and Cheese is primed for his best game yet. It has been a very shaky season so far for Tucker Kraft, but in the wise words of Taylor Swift, he just needs to shake it off. The man has had a game with close to 25 points, as well as a game with just 5.9 fantasy points. Last time out, up against Dallas prior to the bye in Jerry's World, 5 receptions on 5 targets for 56 yards. Given such a great matchup and Kraft's upside and usage inside the red zone, he is a locked and loaded top 4 option at tight end. Maybe Joe Flacco will fix Mike Gesicki, or Noah Fant, but I don't even actually believe that. Gesicki has been as uninvolved as it gets and is yet to eclipse 5 fantasy points. Fant isn't even playing enough snaps as of right now to consider even discussing him, so both of these guys should be on waivers. Next up, we move to, cause you waited all day for Sunday night, the Detroit Lions at the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. Sam Laporta has been very up and down this season. We have seen games that are very, very high, like last week up against the Bengals, where he bends them over the table as the tight end 4 with over 20 fantasy points. He had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 92 yards and a touchdown, but he's also been as low as just 3 receptions on 4 targets for 26 yards up against the Bears early on in the season. On paper, this is going to be tough sledding up against the Chiefs defense, so don't be surprised if he ends up as a bust. But at the end of the day, are you really going to sit Sam Laporta in one of the, if not the highest scoring games of the week? The answer to that is a resounding fuck no, baby. I got him as a top 10 tight end. Apparently, Travis Kelce has a horse cock, according to Taylor Swift's new album, so shout out to him. Super rich wife, horse cock, and multiple Super Bowl rings, all things that I do not have. But shout out to my wife, as while she isn't rich, she does love me, and ultimately that is all that matters. Kelce had his best game of the year last week in primetime in Duval against the Jaguars. I know people might get annoying by me saying Duval like Liam Cohen all the time, but it's so funny. Hilarious that the guy sounds like such a fucking idiot and he completely turned the Jaguars around. Meanwhile, I have an idiot head coach who sounds like a fucking dumbass up there. Like he doesn't know how to fucking speak when he talks to the press, and our team sucks dick. So up against the Jags, Mr. Kelsey, 7 receptions on 8 targets for 61 yards and a score as the tight end 5. The Lions are a mid-range matchup for tight ends, so with Kelsey being relatively reliable so far this season, and with the team still not having Rashee Rice, in what may be the highest scoring game of the week, I got him as a top 10 must-start option. Next up, we move to Hotlanta with the Buffalo Bills at the Atlanta Falcons, the first game on Monday Night Football, because why have one game when you could have both? Da-da-da-da-da-da, like that old taco commercial, if you guys were a child back in, 15 years ago, watching like Nickelodeon, that was always on TV after like Timmy Turner or SpongeBob or something. So Dalton Kincaid has been a monster this season, and not a monster in like a bad way. Like that guy's a monster like a cool monster truck that you played with when you were a kid. 3 of 5 games inside the top 10 and just 2 games with less than 10 fantasy points. Last week up against the Patriots, he was the tight end 10 with 6 receptions on 6 targets for 108 yards. Kincaid has now scored 3 touchdowns so far through the first 5 games of the season, so Kincaid is a must-start guy weekly. The matchup this week is the worst for tight ends, but it's important to understand why that has been the case. It is their schedule. They have faced Cade Otton, who hasn't done jack shit this season, TJ Hawkinson. Before the Vikings remembered he was on the team, Jatavion Sanders, and Zach Ertz with Marcus Mariota under center. So while on paper this is a really rough matchup, I do believe that is hyperinflated, and I think Kincaid will eat as a top 8 option. Prior to the bye, Kyle Pitts looked like the tight end I thought he was going to be when he was coming out of college up against the Commanders. 5 receptions on 5 targets for 70 yards and a touchdown, his first touchdown of the season. While this was by far the best game of the year as the tight end number 3, he has been okay enough for this season as a whole beforehand. So while this is a tough matchup for tight ends, we did just see them having Hunter Henry on the struggle bus. So I am nervous. He's just more of a high-end tight end 2 type of start. Final game here, the Chicago Bears at the left. Hands up. Who are we? The Commanders. Zach Ertz has fallen off the edge of the earth since the first 2 starts of the season. He came out the gate looking real nicey with a touchdown in each game and a top 13 tight end in both showings. Since then, he hasn't even scored more than 7 fantasy points in any given game. And last week in LA up against the Superchargers, he didn't score a single fucking fantasy point. Without Terry McLaurin, again, more than likely, and with Jaden Stormy Daniels back in what should be a higher scoring game, I do expect Ertz to bounce back, but ultimately in a mid-range matchup for tight ends, I don't really trust him at this point. So he's more of a high-end tight end too, kind of like Kyle Pitts. Colston Loveland should be back, and all that is going to do is just confuse us even further. With both tight ends active, Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland, neither guy is start-worthy, and neither guy has even scored more than 10 PPR points. So even with the Bears offense looking good, they are unstartable. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you didn't enjoy today's video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It'd help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen them already. Love you a long time. As always, good boy.